Alright, making a video. Not feeling very well. Blah, blah, blah. So it's a little early for me today. Anyway, so I was just thinking of the general subject of perception, why people think the way they think, culture. What is culture? What dominates? Why do these values that people have dominate their perception? What's the nature of the potential to change the world, what's the probability of people falling out of vaginas a certain way, relating it to physics. Maybe we can come up with vectors for the probabilistic QM answer to how you migrate human beings from form A to form B, reshape them in this alternative form, this minority form currently of perception. And what's the stunning difference in the perception? If you reduce it down, it is comes down to some sort of sense of risk aversion, a sense of foreboding for the reject. I guess I would say that did have some effect on me when I was young. Hard to say. I mean, I was already a little bit cynical by the time I was in school. And, you go to school and there's always some, there's a few of these reject kids, the ones that are dying, and you're like, whoa, I wouldn't want to be in those shoes. I wouldn't have to walk in those boots anywhere. I wouldn't want to be that kid. So you become sort of aware of the danger that lies in this world, and you start figuring out, is there some value that you would say is worth that danger? And my early rational conclusion was, no. I ain't gonna participate in playing, that's for sure. Then you start thinking about other things, this whole value equation of winning and losing, competition. I was always highly competitive. Maybe that's why I became so aware of that kind of psychology. But yeah, you sort of see it, as I had, I had a couple of, I had 3 sisters, and so there was some competition internally. There's always, animosities and periods where somebody's mad at somebody and you got to pick sides or some other kind of bullshit, and there's just the nature of competition. Who's doing well and who's doing poorly, and who's up, who's down. And it was my perception that that there's not this whole game of winning. There's not much victory in winning when somebody you care about is going to be defeated. So those kind of victories were shallow and empty. It's like you win. You get to the cake plate before they do. Whatever the thing is, you get the last cookie. Whatever the thing is, and that you see, anyway, I guess in that circumstance, it's more obvious to you that there's a price for your satisfaction, that for you to have, they don't get to have. If we go where you want to go, then they have to be miserable. And if you get dragged along to where they want to go, you're miserable. I think I said that right. But anyway, you get the point. Is that there's all this, there's a price to victory. And so that sort of, as a theme, can roll around in your head for, 30 or 40 years. And, eventually you might coalesce that into an understanding. It might say something like, oh, yeah, I don't really like this. I don't really have any more. You kind of lose your admiration for the contest. because you start to see what it costs, the losers, and that you recognize there's just no value in artificial anyway contests. That if you're going to have a winner and a loser, it ought to be by necessity, not where there's options and a choice not to. Just seems sensible. So it brings us to, so these are just really simple kind of standards, little big trees that can be in your forest of philosophy, and you'll always be passing them, and you'll be saying, "There's the big tree. There's the big tree again." They'll keep flowing through your field of view. Will be these little subtle understandings, and that essentially describes or defines the culture of your brain, the temperament and disposition. Whether you're a sympathetic person or whether you're some other kind of person. Someone may be more aggressively, aware of opportunity and, winning or some other kind of thing, whatever. I mean, it's always hard to imagine being somebody else, especially when your forest seems so sensible and rational in terms of having good, sensible trees in it. And, it's hard to try to bend those and move them around and say, what would it be like to be one of them? I can't really relate. Just because it all seems quite reasonable, that I would think the way I think and feel the way I feel, in a way, being in the circumstance I'm in. So, but we have to try, because that's the nature of this game, is you have to attempt to communicate understanding, to be able to, say, share. I'll show you my trees, you show me yours, and maybe we can, maybe we can blend images, and we can understand better through that process. That sounds good, but the bottom line is, I think you have it wrong. And, I want to correct your wrongness. That's what it's going to come down to for most people, is that your priorities are, cultural crap. They're made out of crap. You're caught up in a game that you were brainwashed to play. And the game has no character. It's just like you've been raised to be a tennis player or something, and all you do is eat, sleep, and dream tennis. And you've been too narrow, too limited in your experiencing of life to realize just how shallow and unproductive and useless that nonsense is, and that there's much more to this game you're playing, in terms of understanding how you're being manipulated by these cultural strings, by just patterns of behavior that have no credibility beyond the fact that they are the incumbent pattern. They're the past pattern, and the past patterns are always hard to break. So your rigidity is a symptom, of a flaw, of a corruption in the process of our evolution. That the old model understanding is difficult to modify. It changes with resistance, and that is it's not a fair fight, and it's destructive when necessary, when more radical change is necessary. You think how slowly the humans arrived at simple understandings we, from our current perspective, it becomes very difficult to understand how people couldn't understand the wrongness of what they were doing. Couldn't see the I just can't imagine if my sisters were sold off to men, how I wouldn't be able to empathize and say that's wrong. But people did. They accepted the traditions because I guess they figured they were going to get theirs. And so their hunger was stronger than their repulsion at what the hunger satisfaction was going to cost. So anyway, didn't want to get into these specifics. Just wanted to get into the idea of what it takes to migrate a culture, migrate perception. I don't think it's onerous, but I do have this perception, this understanding, that I think it just does take a little bit of propaganda, a little bit of well-made argumentation, well-made, key word. Maybe you have to make it. It isn't true. It isn't itself. The integrity of the words alone. Maybe you got to dress it up a little, make it, give it a little sweetener. Juice the recipe a little to make it consumable, more functional, more useful, more practical. I guess is the point. You can't just make the reasoned argument. You have to make the effective argument. So I guess that's part of it. But I don't see anything I don't buy the idea that words, that communications, that movies, that anything can't reveal a truth and give people, alter their internal culture, alter the trees in their forest and how they show up in their lives. But yeah, it is harder to do it, I would imagine, through words. I can say that there have been a few words in history that have meant something to me, a few phrases. The judge a man based on the content of his character, not the color of his skin. Use that one a lot. Just a beautiful piece of logic. I like it. So it has echoed inside of me. And, I rely on it sometimes to straighten me out, to, change the bad habit that might rear up inside of me. The convenience of the easy bigotry. And, that's what it's going to come down to, is that, it won't be as natural as having it built into you from the beginning. It won't be as as comfortable as I am being empathetic, let's say, or being risk aware. That's very natural for me. Very seems the logical thing to do. So for somebody who doesn't have that logic, having some principle, some idea that informs them that, oh yeah, I have to check my optimism a little, because I am now knowledgeable that from the loser position, and especially the the spectator tied in the stand who is having gasoline thrown on him, from that perspective, yeah, what's going on might not be very appealing, and I might have to account for that price being paid for me to have what I want, or to take what I want. Some sort of awareness of the implications, the real implications, the full term of what endorsement means. You can't keep pretending that the lottery only produces winners. That's just not the truth. And as a philosophy, it's vacant. As a mechanism to make you a productive human being, it's hopeless. So yeah, you got to fix things like that. If you have some contrivance of convenient perception, little happy thoughts, your happy place has to be made out of something, a fantasy in the corner somewhere where you play. You can't try to make reality a happy place. That's cheating. You can't put your happy place in reality and claim it as a real functional element of the game. Again, that's all just cheating the truth and cheating your obligation to be better than that. So anyway, still trying to migrate to the real subject, which is, how do you do this? It's one thing to say it can be done. You really do have to have some sort of description of how it gets done. Here's the plan, and I'll concede that there's no point in me saying yes. Oh, stuffed animal, little bear. Jeez, it must be some dog. Left him behind. It's a minkie. I much like minkies. Oh man, I am feeling a little raw. Eek. Eeky. I feel eeky. Anyway, so what was I? Finishing up. Yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll finish up. Yeah, so it's all just culture is mutable. Culture, we've already demonstrated its mutability. We've seen how the common understanding has evolved and changed. So it's definitely something doable. And the mechanism of the doing is usually somebody with some sort of credibility explains it. Somebody who has a position of respectability, Or there's just these events too. There's always some sort of event where, the government overreacts and slaughters people, and it becomes a news story, and blah blah blah. And then people become more aware of a problem because they create an incident, And that is kind of silly. It's like the 9/11 syndrome. You get into a $2 trillion insane waste of money, because of a terrorist got lucky. Just unfortunately, this is what moves people, what moves their psychology, because they aren't well-tempered and they aren't very pervious to somebody saying, slow down, think. Let's just think about this. What part of you is reacting? Would you let that part of you babysit your kid? Yeah, come on. That's not the best part of you. So come on, what's the best part of you say? What's your most rational brain say? And if you can just get people to do some of that, maybe you can migrate culture with just a bit of intelligence. I mean, the truth is people are more capable of understanding conceptually arguments like this because they aren't relying on God anymore. They're not saying, what would Jesus say? They know those answers aren't real answers, and that real answers are going to be complex, and they're going to be related to the psychology that owns human beings, and that psychology is in many respects not very credible. So anyway, eek, I don't want to go to work. Yeah. Yuck. Until next time, and such. Whoa, I'm back. Tired. Yeah, again. Some more. Oh, jeez. Oh, that's right. I have to make a video. Okay, probability of people becoming this or that. Why did they become this instead of that? Why? Culture is just so strange, right? Because you could argue that, well, what if Japan had won World War II or something? What if, or let's just say Asian culture in general, had been more, if they had gotten into the business of, like Rome, and spreading across the world or something. And what would the world look like now? If 1,000 years ago, the Chinese or something had, taken over the world. And what would culture be defined as or described as? You can even go with like Native American cultures. They were all sort of doomed, because it seemed pretty obvious that the Aztecs were going to take them all over eventually. That they were going to move into North America. And, the North American tribes were sort of doomed. But where were they heading? In terms of civilization, or the Mayas, or what would have been their dead end? And I think there is a dead end. I think there is a cultural, point where people start to culturally understand, as a matter of a function of culture, maybe even. There's a certain cynicism, for the game. And I think that's what's happened in most of the civilized countries of the world. They've let go of the religious fairy tales as serious philosophy, and they've sort of realized that, the nature of the game is pretty messy. And it's pretty hard to have a utopian society. That exploitation and waste seems to be a problem built into the human game. So if they're not down on life just because of the mechanism, the nature of it, they might be down on it because of what they understand it to be in terms of something they're personally experiencing as a human. And even as a human, it's kind of messy and sloppy and not something they would initiate or oblige somebody else to play or to be victim of even. So I think these ethics, these perceptions are just as inevitable as, realizing that slavery is wrong. People are going to realize that eating animals is not very good, and they're going to realize there's certain inevitable walls they're going to crash into. And so it's just a matter of how much time and whether the human race has time to rationally decide as a collective to gracefully exit, or whether some other exit is going to be imposed upon it because it won't do what it needs to do in time. It'll wait till it's too late, and there won't be any decision, won't have anything to do with it. What people want won't have anything to do with it. They'll be stuck with an out of control circumstance rather than a controllable one. So anyway, I won't force you to listen to the leaves. But yeah, we are, we all have an identity. And so obviously it's not some bizarre magic trick to achieve perspective, anti-natalist perspective. I did it without even trying, right? And so you just argue that, it's doable because we're all proof of its doability. And you're just really arguing about what philosophy has probabilistic integrity in terms of, realistically, if people do get smarter, what are they going to think? And it's not even so much they have to get smarter intellectually, but I just mean the truth is going to get more and more impossible to ignore. I mean, religion gets dumb because evidence of evolution gets obvious. There's kind of a big dead tree here. Lots of parts to fly off of this thing. That is a big dead tree. Whoa. Yeah, lots of interesting stuff going on there. That's a big ass spider there, boy. Can you see him? He is perfectly camouflaged, ain't he? Come on, move so they can see you. Yeah, there you are. That is a big spider. Well, adequately large. I have some of those in my house actually now and then. They are pretty, aren't they? They got all the little tigery legs. Woo! 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 Anyway, till next time, and such, and so forth and whatnot. Yeah. I think I was done before I decided to play with the spider. Ooh, trip. Oh yeah, I'm just so tired of being alive and doing this shit. Anyway, till next time.